This is the Deep Dive, and tonight we lead with a special news bulletin focusing on India.
That's right.
We're bringing you the top headlines making waves right now, everything from, well, significant geopolitical shifts to sports and business.
A real mix.
Consider this your rapid, no-nonsense briefing. We'll give you the essential stories coming out of India.
Good evening. And yes, we'll be anchoring our discussion tonight firmly on the facts, providing the context you need for these key developments.
Right. Let's get straight to it then.
Let's do that.
Our top story. Following that terrible terrorist attack in Pahalgam, tragically claiming 26 tourist lives, an attack claimed by the Resistance Front.
Which intelligence links to Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Exactly. India has now announced a pretty comprehensive 7-point action plan aimed at Pakistan.
Swiftly announced, yes. And it's a multi-pronged response. The first major point, and it's a significant one, is the suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty.
The 1960 treaty, that's huge.
It is. It's crucial for water sharing. Suspending it could really impact Pakistan's agricultural sector quite significantly. They rely heavily on the Indus system.
Okay, so that's point one. What else is in this plan?
India has also ordered the immediate closure of the Attari border checkpoint. There are very limited exceptions, though.
Exceptions.
Yes, just for pre-approved returns scheduled before May 1st.
Right. And visa regulations, I understand they're being tightened considerably.
They are. India's revoked SARC visa exemptions for Pakistani citizens. Meaning those currently in India have just 48 hours to depart.
48 hours, okay. And diplomatically?
Pakistani military advisors in New Delhi declared persona non grata.
Unwelcome.
Precisely. They have 1 week to leave. At the same time, India is recalling its own defense staff from Islamabad.
And the missions themselves.
Both countries are significantly cutting down the size of their diplomatic missions. They've agreed to cap staff at 30 each, effective May 1st.
So a major drawdown.
A very major one. And the visa restrictions, they go even further.
How?
India has suspended all visa services for Pakistani nationals. Full stop.
And deadlines for leaving.
For most Pakistani citizens, it's April 27th. There's a slight extension just until April 29th for those receiving medical treatment in India.
Okay. And one final point. You mentioned border ceremonies.
Yes, the traditional BSF retreat ceremonies, at Attari, Hussainiwala, and Sadki. They're being scaled back quite a bit.
Scaled back how?
Well, the usual handshakes between the border guards, suspended. And the gates themselves will stay closed during the ceremony.
Wow. So what's the overarching message from India here?
It seems pretty clear. The government stated, peace and provocation cannot coexist. It signals a much firmer stance on cross-border terrorism, a more assertive security posture.
Right. Which naturally leads us to our next headline. This series of actions has, perhaps unsurprisingly, led to a further escalation in tensions between India and Pakistan.
Unfortunately, yes. It's a pattern we've seen before, hasn't it? After major militant attacks.
It has. India points fingers, Pakistan denies involvement.
India accuses Pakistan of, harboring and supporting these groups. Pakistan consistently denies these allegations.
And underneath it all is the Kashmir issue.
Always. The long-standing dispute remains central, and diplomatic efforts to resolve it, well, they've repeatedly stalled, haven't they?
They really have.
So these recent tit-for-tat measures, they really just underscore a significant erosion of trust. A breakdown in communication, frankly.
Which raises concerns for the whole region.
Absolutely. Valid concerns about regional stability in South Asia.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly for our third headline. We're looking at the economic backdrop to all this, specifically Pakistan's economic situation amidst these heightened tensions.
Yes, because while there's been military rhetoric exchanged...
India's defense minister hinting at military options, Pakistan's army chief talking tough.
Exactly. But the economic reality for Pakistan is, quite stark.
How so?
Well, Pakistan's economy is, frankly, walking a tightrope. Just last year, 2023, they barely avoided a sovereign default.
That was close. Saved by the IMF.
Largely, yes. A $3 billion IMF bailout, plus crucial loans from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and China. But even with that, the situation is fragile.
Fragile in what way? What are the numbers?
Well, inflation peaked at a really worrying 38.5% last year. The national debt-to-GDP ratio is around 70%, which is very high.
And debt repayments.
They face huge external debt repayments estimated at $22 billion just in 2025.
$22 billion. That's a massive figure.
It is. Now, there's a recent IMF agreement providing some funds for climate resilience, but the bigger picture is that crucial structural economic reforms. They're stalled.
Why stalled?
Ongoing political instability, mostly. You've got the government's crackdown on Imran Khan's party, plus persistent insurgencies in regions like Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It all makes implementing tough reforms very difficult.
And now adding to this pressure, as we mentioned, India's suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty.
Exactly. That adds another layer of economic vulnerability. The Indus system is absolutely vital for Pakistan's agriculture.
The backbone of the rural economy, really.
Precisely. Any disruption there could have severe consequences for livelihoods, for food security.
So some analysts are looking at Pakistan's recent rhetoric, the missile tests, perhaps.
Yes, some suggest it might be, partly, an attempt to divert public attention away from these very serious domestic economic problems, and maybe shore up support for the military, which some perceive has declined.
What's the general view among economists?
The consensus is pretty clear. Even a limited military conflict with India could completely derail Pakistan's already precarious economic recovery.
Because they're so reliant on outside help.
Exactly. Heavy reliance on external aid and those strict IMF reform demands makes them exceptionally vulnerable. The World Bank just lowered Pakistan's GDP growth forecast for 2025 down to 2.7%.
So low.
Yes, citing fiscal constraints. So given all this deep-seated economic weakness, any move towards military escalation looks like a really high-stakes gamble for Pakistan, potentially devastating consequences.
Right. Okay, moving on. Following India's moves, Pakistan has now responded with its own set of measures. Retaliation, essentially.
That's correct. Pakistan's National Security Committee, chaired by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, has announced several countermeasures.
What are they?
Firstly, they've suspended all existing bilateral agreements with India. And notably, that includes the 1972 Simla Agreement.
The Simla Agreement. Remind us of its significance.
It was really the foundational framework for bilateral negotiations between the two, especially on the Kashmir issue. Suspending it is a major step.
And secondly,
A very strong statement on the Indus Waters Treaty. Pakistan declared that any diversion of Indus River water by India, violating the 1960 treaty, will be considered an act of war.
an act of war. That's incredibly strong language.
It underscores just how absolutely critical those water resources are for Pakistan.
Okay. We're also seeing reciprocal actions in other areas like aviation and trade.
Indeed. Pakistan has closed its airspace to all Indian-operated airlines. We saw something similar back in 2019 during previous tensions.
Right, I remember that. And trade.
Suspended. All bilateral trade with India, and even trade conducted via third countries. That's going to disrupt goods movement and deepen the economic isolation between them.
And the border crossing at Wagah.
Also completely shut down by Pakistan.
And mirroring India's diplomatic moves.
Yes, Pakistan is also reducing its embassy staff in India and has expelled Indian defense officials who were stationed in Islamabad.
So, taken together, what does this signify?
It represents a really significant and, frankly, concerning downturn in relations. Both sides are digging in, hardening their positions.
And suspending agreements like Simla.
It removes crucial mechanisms for dialogue, for negotiation. That's what's worrying. It potentially destabilizes the entire region when those channels break down.
Okay, let's shift gears completely now. We turn our attention to sports and an update from the Indian Premier League, the IPL.
Yes, some good news for fans in Bengaluru. Royal Challengers Bengaluru, RCB, they've finally notched their first home win of this 2025 season.
Who did they beat?
They defeated the Rajasthan Royals, RR, by 11 runs.
Tell us about RCB's innings.
RCB put up a strong total, 205 for 5 in their 20 overs. Virat Kohli was key, scoring a solid 70 runs off 42 balls.
Vintage Kohli.
Pretty much. 8 boundaries, 2 sixes. And Devdutt Padikkal also hit a quick half-century 50 off just 27 balls with 3 sixes. Their partnership was crucial, 95 runs.
Any other contributions?
Yeah, useful runs from Phil Salt, 26. Tim David had 23 off 15, and Jitesh Sharma added a quick 20 not out from only 10 balls at the end.
And the Royals bowling?
Sandeep Sharma was their best bowler, taking 2 wickets, though he was a bit expensive, conceding 45 runs.
Okay, so 206 was the target. How did Rajasthan Royals respond in the chase?
They actually started really aggressively. Yashavi Jaiswal smashed 49 off just 19 balls. Pao Suryavanshi added 16. They had a quick opening stand of 52.
Sound like they were on track.
For a bit, yes.
Yeah.
But despite some contributions later, Nitish Ranami 28, the acting captain Ryan Parag got 22, and Dhruv Jural fought hard for 47. They just couldn't build those big, crucial partnerships.
What turned it against them?
Krunal Pandya took 2 really important wickets in the middle overs, And then Josh Hazelwood bowled brilliantly for RCB.
Hazelwood was effective.
Very. He took 4 wickets for 33 runs. That spell really derailed the Royals' chase.
So what was the final score for RR?
They finished on 194 for 9, falling short by 11 runs.
And this loss means?
It's their 5th straight defeat. That actually equals their longest ever losing streak in the IPL.
Ouch! So the impact on the points table.
Big boost for RCB. They move up to 3rd place. But Rajasthan Royals, they remain stuck down in 8th.
Okay. Now, some other international news involving India. Representation at a significant global event coming up.
That's right. President Murmu will be attending the funeral of Pope Francis.
At the Vatican.
Yes, at the Vatican on April 26th. Her attendance really highlights the importance India places on its relationship with the Holy See, and also recognizes the significant Catholic community, both globally and within India itself.
Has this been officially confirmed?
Yes. India's Ministry of External Affairs confirmed the president's participation. And while she's there, she's also expected to have some diplomatic meetings with other world leaders attending the funeral.
Pope Francis passed away recently, right?
Yes, on April 22nd at the age of 88. A hugely influential figure, wasn't he? Known for his progressive views, his focus on interfaith dialogue, social justice.
And reforms within the church.
Exactly. Plus his attention to global issues like poverty and climate change.
And India's reaction.
India declared a day of national mourning as a mark of respect. The national flag is flying at half-mast across the country. President Murmu's presence is a clear sign of India's solidarity and recognition of the Pope's global impact.
Okay, shifting our focus now back to South Asia. There's some discussion happening in Sri Lanka about a recent defense agreement signed with India.
That's right. There's definitely growing scrutiny, especially from opposition parties and the media in Colombo, about this Defense Memorandum of Understanding, or MOPIN.
What's the MOQ about?
It aims to boost cooperation in areas like maritime security, intelligence sharing, and also joint military training exercises. It follows some recent high-level visits between the two countries.
So why the scrutiny?
Well, the main issue is that the full details of the MOU haven't been made public. And that lack of disclosure is leading to speculation and, well, concern.
What are the opposition parties saying?
Parties like the Samaji Jana Balawegaya, the SJB, they're demanding the government present the agreement to Parliament for proper oversight. They're stressing the need for transparency on national security matters.
And the media.
Echoing those calls, really, highlighting the public's right to know the specifics of this defense deal with India.
What are the specific concerns being raised?
Primarily, worries about potential increased Indian influence over Sri Lanka's defense policies, and also the possibility, however remote, of India establishing military facilities on Sri Lankan soil.
What's the Sri Lankan government's position?
They maintain the MOU is in Sri Lanka's best interests, and that it strengthens regional security cooperation. But, crucially, they haven't released the full text.
So it's the lack of transparency that's fueling anxiety.
Precisely. Analysts see this agreement reflecting India's strategic interests in the Indian Ocean, especially, countering China's growing presence. But the secrecy around it could actually worsen sensitivities in Sri Lanka about foreign interference.
A delicate balancing act for Sri Lanka, then.
Very much so. Managing relationships with both India and China is a constant challenge for them.
All right, our next headline looks at technology and its potential impact on a major Indian industry. We're talking about AI and accents.
Yes, an interesting piece from Bloomberg Opinion suggests that advances in artificial intelligence, specifically AI's ability to generate and understand American accents, could give a real boost to India's huge outsourcing industry.
How would that work?
The idea is that AI tools that can accurately replicate and understand American English could help overcome communication challenges sometimes faced in Indian call centers or BPO operations.
Bridging the accent gap, so to speak.
Exactly. By using these AI technologies, Indian professionals could offer even smoother, more effective customer service. That could lead to higher client satisfaction and maybe even open up new areas for industry expansion.
Because accent differences have sometimes been a hurdle.
Yes. The analysis points out that while India dominates global outsourcing, accent differences have occasionally hindered totally seamless communication and competitiveness. AI-powered accent modification software could potentially fix that.
Reducing misunderstandings, improving service quality.
That's the potential. And beyond just accents, AI could also automate more routine tasks in the sector.
Freeing up workers for more complex things.
Right, allowing them to focus on higher value activities. This could potentially lead to better paying jobs and a more skilled workforce overall.
So opportunities for upskilling, too.
Definitely. Adopting AI could create significant training opportunities, keeping Indian professionals competitive globally.
Are there any downsides mentioned?
Yes, the analysis does acknowledge potential issues like job displacement in some roles and ethical questions around AI-driven communication. But the overall tone is optimistic.
So the conclusion is that embracing AI and American accents could strengthen India's position.
Yes, unlock new opportunities and solidify its strength in the global outsourcing market.
Interesting. Okay, now to business and tech investment news. A major investment announced in India's AI and data analytics space.
Yes, Databricks, the data and analytics company, has announced a very substantial investment in India, $250 million.
$250 million. Why India?
It's a strategic move to capitalize on India's booming AI and data analytics market. They want to tap into India's large pool of tech talent and meet the growing demand for data solutions there.
Where will the money go specifically?
A big chunk will go to expanding their engineering and customer success teams based in India. They also plan to build new partnerships and strengthen existing ones with local businesses and academic institutions.
What's the main goal?
To accelerate the adoption of Databricks platform among Indian companies, helping them use data and AI for innovation and growth.
Why is India seen as such a key market?
Well, you've got rapid digitalization across the economy, plus a strong government focus on promoting AI and data science. It creates fertile ground.
And Databricks platform can help across different sectors.
Yes, they aim to help organizations in finance, healthcare, manufacturing, and others tackle complex data challenges and find new opportunities with AI.
So this investment signals real confidence in India's potential.
Absolutely. It shows Databricks believes India is and will continue to be a major global hub for data analytics and AI. It's a commitment to playing a big role in shaping that landscape.
Got it. Our next headline takes us to the electric vehicle sector in India, with some potentially significant news involving a prominent company co-founder.
Yes, we're getting reports that Puneet Jaggi, who co-founded the EV ride-hailing service BlueSmart, has been detained.
Detained in connection with what?
It appears to be connected to an ongoing legal case involving another company, Gensol Engineering. Now, the specific details are still quite unclear at this stage. Authorities haven't released much information yet.
Okay, so details are scant, but it's drawing attention.
Definitely. It's raising questions in both the renewable energy and EV sectors.
Tell us about Gensol Engineering.
They're involved in building solar power plants, but also in manufacturing electric vehicles. And reportedly, Gensol has been facing some scrutiny recently over its financial dealings and project execution.
And how might Mr. Jaggi be involved?
Again, it's not officially confirmed, but speculation suggests it might relate to some business transactions or agreements between BlueSmart and Gensol.
BlueSmart has been growing fast, hasn't it?
Very rapidly, yes. Expanding its EV fleet in major cities, really pushing sustainable transport. So, given Jaggi's key role there, his detention is certainly a notable development in this investigation.
What happens next?
We expect authorities to release more details as their inquiries progress. But this whole situation really underscores the increasing regulatory oversight that emerging sectors like renewables and EVs are facing in India right now.
And the potential impact?
Well, the outcome could have implications not just for BlueSmart and Gensol, but potentially for the wider renewable energy and electric mobility ecosystem in India too.
Okay, one final headline for our bulletin tonight. This one concerns potential developments in trade relations between India and the U.S.
That's right. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen made some interesting comments recently. She suggested India could actually be the first nation to sign a new significant trade deal with the United States.
The first nation? That sounds potentially quite important.
It does. It signals a possible step forward in the U.S.-India economic relationship. It also underlines the Biden administration's interest in strengthening ties with India.
Why the focus on India now?
Well, it fits into the context of broader geopolitical shifts and the push for more resilient, diversified global supply chains, away from over-reliance on, say, China.
What might such a trade deal cover?
The specifics aren't out yet, of course, but it's expected it would likely tackle key areas like improving market access for goods and services between the two countries.
Reducing tariffs.
Yes, potentially reducing tariffs on various products and also increasing cooperation on regulatory standards and practices.
Have both countries expressed interest in this?
Yes, both India and the U.S. have publicly stated they want to deepen their economic partnership and work on reducing trade barriers.
So Secretary Yellen's comment reflects a growing view of India's importance.
Absolutely. growing recognition of India's economic weight globally and its strategic role, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region.
And the U.S. sees India as key to diversifying supply chains.
That seems clear, and also as a counterweight to China's economic influence.
What are the potential benefits if a deal happens?
Well, potentially significant benefits.
Yeah.
Increased trade flows, more investment, hopefully job creation in both economies.
And it sends a message globally.
A positive signal, yes. A commitment from the world's two largest democracies to free and fair trade principles.
But it's still early days.
Very much so. The timeline for actually negotiating and finalizing any deal and the precise terms and conditions, that's all still to be determined. But it's certainly a development to watch closely.
Indeed. Well, we've certainly covered a wide spectrum of significant news stories tonight, haven't we? From critical geopolitical developments and their economic fallout,
Right through to sporting results, important diplomatic events.
technological shifts, major business news, and potential trade breakthroughs.
It really gives you a snapshot, doesn't it? A picture of the dynamic, interconnected events shaping India and its position on the world stage right now.
It absolutely does. That concludes this special news bulletin edition of The Deep Dive.
And as always, for more analysis and deeper insights into these unfolding stories, please do stay tuned to our future discussions.
For The Deep Dive, this has been your headline briefing.